Right then, so this is ERA GP2 Restoration 8. So this is the calendar that Tip Top Engineering James Baxter has had made. So there's a picture of the engine and other bits obviously there on the calendar. This is May 22, and
that's right, we happened to put it on the May month, but actually the picture was taken in 1947, and lots of interesting detail from it, but most especially the supercharger down here is a Murray Jamieson blower, which on all the earlier ERAs is upright on the front of the engine. This car we know was originally spec'd with a Zolla, as was GP1, the pair of them were on Zollas, and it came with a Zolla on it, which is this unit here. Very interesting, it mounts on the side of the engine block here, and is driven at this end. There was a pair of carbs feeding here, and this was the outlet going into the engine. A nice little ERA pattern cast in there, which I don't know what the story is there, but whether it was a Zolla dedicated to ERA cars or not, we don't know. Don't know if it's original one. Gorgeous inside, all dead original, lovely thing, but Zollas are quite difficult to make work well. You're almost a Zolla fan or a compressor type, or you're a Roots fan. And up to now I'm completely a Roots fan. Not that that's going to influence our decision much on which to fit, but at the end of the day we're trying to overcome a lot of GP2's unreliability that it was famous for in period. Consequently, we found, as it happens, a brand new Murray Jamieson. It's got a bit of shelf life on it, but thanks to David Ellison for the lead on this one. It basically just needs pulling apart, some seals putting in it, some pinning for the phasing gears, and back together. Obviously there's manifolds to make, and there'll be a housing to put on the end of here to house the gears to seal the oil in, but we're hoping that it'll fit down alongside the engine as it did in the original picture there. The trouble is with this one that it now needs a single SU carburetor to feed it instead of the let's say slightly later ones that it had when it came here. So as luck would have it, we do have the pattern equipment here for a 2.5 inch SU carburetor, and the float chambers and the dashpot lid. These came with the Riley, the blue lady as you call it, Jeff, but the David Hawkins ERA Riley, I should refer to it as. And funnily enough, I've been consulting with David Morris, who's been very kind and generous with his advice, and he says 2.5 inch, even for a 1500 ERA is the way to go. So we're going to pretty much copy the setup of the ERA Riley. And when I said to David we're going to cast a new carburetor, he said, "Oh, David supplied the one that I'm running on R11B years ago." So 35 years ago, David Hawkins cast the bits that David Morris qualified on pole with, let's put it that way, at Goodwood this year. So very successful car. And I asked David if he'd like any more for any of his other ERA customers, and he said he might well do, which is all a sort of a nice happy coincidence. It almost completes the loop. So carburetor from scratch is going to be quite a lot of work, but to build a reliable engine in the long term, we think it's worth it. And as I hinted then, yes, 1500, because this car was originally a 1500, spec for all its period races as a 1500. In the last video I did say that the crankcase looks like the block looks like it's had a 2 litre crank in it for a long time. Indeed it has. It's got 63mm bores, which he's always had from scratch, but we now think that it was given a 2 litre crank from an earlier ERA with a longer stroke. So we're going to leave provision to put that crank back in it, but we are having a brand new crank made with an 80mm stroke, which will put it back to its high revving E-type status. So it's back to original spec, and we can sort of say that it's what it should have in, really. We've already ordered new pistons for it. They're coming from JE in America, and we had to make new rods anyway because one of them had some sort of cracks in it, certainly imperfections. The rods were Jaguar, and they were adapting a 2 litre crank into where it shouldn't really have been, so they weren't a standard ERA length con rod, let's put it that way. So Arrow, who are making the new crank, are also going to make us a set of rods, and they're also going to make a set of rods so that should we ever want to put the 2 litre crank back in, we can do. So we've got all bases covered.
Yeah.
A long lead time and a lot of expense coming from Arrow, but we think we've gone to the best, and can't wait to see what they produce for us.
Yeah. So now we go on to the newly stripped down and repainted chassis. So it looks really good. I'm impressed, and I'm sure you are.
Yeah,
with
really pleased.
how it's come on.
So the paint quality is the same as the Riley. We've spilt methanol on the Riley chassis and it's resisted it very well. So I got the old paint tin down and went to my local paint spray shop and said, some of this please, but we'd like grey this time. And we picked a shade out of the RAL catalogue which we thought was about right. But there's an awful lot of work. It looks simple as it stands now. Those who went to Prescott saw this in its stripped down form. We went and stripped it a lot more since as well, all by hand, so that we didn't miss any detail. We didn't want to just go and stick it in a shot blasting place and sort of lose the integrity. We've done little bits of welds up and down on small cracks and things, but nothing major. It's straight enough.
Yeah.
It's straight at the key points. How it gets from key point to key point is a bit wafty in places, but the key bits are all in the right spot. We did a bit of work on this member. In fact, we turned this round. I think that somebody else had reversed it, and we think we put it back straight as it should be.
Yeah.
And we've also improved the steering rack mounts massively. So these 2 bits here are new, and then we've strengthened them with these bits of tube in the middle.
Yeah.
So that we're mounting the rack nice and rigid. Loads of lateral strength in those.
Yeah.
And we didn't paint that bit because it says GP2 on it.
Yeah. That is really good, isn't it?
Right.
You get something like
for
that.
some reason it says C2 there. Whether it means chassis 2 or not, we don't know. But we found it. There it is.
Yeah.
It's for the historians to revel in later.
Argue about whatever.
It might come to light that they were all called C chassis numbers in one instance. So you certainly don't go messing with any of them. You just sort of varnish them so that you can see them for reference in future.
Yeah.
We did a fair bit of work on this member here. As with like restoring a house, you don't know when stuff was done to a chassis. There's a lot of history here over a lot of time and lots of people having a go at it. We don't know if this is original or not, but certainly at some point somebody had cut a wedge out of this, making it flat bottomed, using the same bottom piece of metal and welding it in flat. So we've reinstated that shape to reproduce the curved shape that it once had. It looks like it's from a sort of 20s car to me, but I don't know. We think we've done right putting it back.
Yeah.
And of course the dint in the bottom of the chassis we're going to keep because we're going to use that. The dint that was hammered in clumsily later in its life, we're just going to leave that because it's part of the evolution of the car. And we're getting ready soon to be mounting the gearbox back in. While we're talking about gearbox, here it is in its stripped down form. So to allow the prop shaft to go underneath, we've made this drop down gearbox. This is just a plastic printed version, which my son Harry's getting into his 3D printing. So he printed that for us, more as a space claim to make sure all the bolt holes line up and whatnot.
Yeah. Looks really good, that, doesn't it?
It's
done a good
lash
job
up.
there.
The printing makes it look to be 50 pence piecey, but when it comes out on a CNC machine, it'll be smooth all around there. The ribs make it look a bit like the end of a supercharger there, which is just a happy coincidence. These are being produced at the moment by a local company, machined out of solid. And then we can put the gearbox back together. It's all otherwise pretty good.
So we're waiting for a few different people to get some of these things sorted, and then
we've got a lot of plates spinning.
It's a lot of
out of manufacture
time thing. And
that's a Fraser Nash gearbox where we're passing. It's in. We've got many restoration projects on the go at the same time, and in fact, it's a bit of a race at the minute.
New bits.
Between the Fraser Nash and the ERA. So a Fraser Nash chassis, by contrast, is quite a bit more crude.
Very much so, I would say.
Is it any wonder that they're easily replicated?
Yeah.
And some Nash bits, sprocket bits on the floor. And since last time, I think these gears were in bits on a bench top, but they've now been assembled back into the front timing cover.
Right, yeah.
So this ultimately drives off the idler, so camshaft gears will be here, crank gear here. This idler is driving via this one up to drive the blower. That one goes out to drive the water pump. So the water pump is bolted on there. That's been rebuilt and assembled, ready to go. Aluminium, magnesium, aluminium. I've been told by Alan, who I've forgotten his name momentarily, but he came up here last week, bless him, that the gear direction on this has been reversed to suit the magneto that they had available.
Right.
The housing is the same, but it's just the bevel angle of the gears inside has been reversed. There we are. The fuel pump has been rebuilt. That's ready for on now. New seal in there, to make a little peg spanner to undo the sort of collar that's inside there. That's pretty good and ready to roll. And this is the front timing cover that then goes on that housing. And interestingly, we found an engine number on this, which it implies it's chassis number 3. So there's E1 10,000/3.
Yeah.
But we think that this GP2 did have engine number 3 originally.
Yeah.
It's easy to swap that part out of between the cars, and who knows, but apart from that we don't have any numbers anywhere.
No.
So that was a nice little find. They don't all have an integral cast magneto platform, some are detachable, so that was also interesting.
Right. Looks like a bit of crack testing going on.
Yes,
has been going on here.
That's right. So we do at least dye penetrant everything, and then if we deem it necessary we x-ray bits on top of that. So this is the Dion tube that goes round the back axle and is bolted together with these bits here. And then this peg here has a square trunnion block on it that runs up and down the back of the diff casing. That locates the axles sideways while travelling up and down. And then this little joint here is interesting. It's a kind of a twisting joint. Right. Otherwise, the A-frame, along with its rigid radius arms on it, would form an anti-roll bar if you weren't careful. It would put an awful lot of load through these. Right. But with this joint pivoting, it's allowed to flex and move and twist. And sort of matter of course with crack testing bits like this, thinking I don't think they will be cracked. Well, this bit was. This is the new one. The old one had a little hairline crack round about this place, where this collar just ended, and it put it under obviously more stress than it was happy to cope with. So that's a replacement lump made out of EN24, and he's ready for reassembly. Yeah, very good. We might be coating these in dull nickel just to sort of preserve them, because we don't want them. We can't live with bare steel on parts like this. No. And we're not really into silver paint, so that's the radius arm all stripped and ready. Yeah. Interesting that they bolt it to the back plate sort of carriers with this knurled. What do you call it? Almost a gripping spline, flat plane spline. So that not all the load goes through the bolts. And the weld quality is gas welding from 1939-ish. And it's all quite crude, really. You might make it nicer if you were going to reproduce it, but it is what it is. We don't want to go sort of improving it too much.
It's pretty neat to me anyway.
Yeah, it's not so bad. It'll certainly good to go again. And while we're on the floor, this is the old inlet manifold in magnesium, so it was that way up on the engine, so it's fed up from underneath, and that's the blow-off valve, and that's going off for a pressure
be really
gauge.
light.
Very light indeed, but in the period pictures which we started off with, you'll see it's got the finned manifold, which is one more like this. So we happen to have a choice of two. This one's left over again from good old David Hawkins days, which would bolt on. We quite fancy welding a blow-off valve in the centre there to look like it did originally, instead of this little skimpy one. The This one might also work. That's been loaned to us by David Ellison. We'll be using one of those.
One of the other.
One of the other on it.
Mm.
Yeah. So we've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot of plates spinning. A lot of parts out being
That's
made.
right. Yeah.
But we're hoping to have the chassis going down to the body makers quite soon.
Yeah.
Those are the fuel tank mounts on the floor down there. And we'll be keeping the tail and the rear of the body the same. We'll be keeping all the nose and bonnet and scuttle to the firewall the same.
Right.
And then having a new scuttle hoop for the middle section of the car reproduced in the new low line version.
Yeah.
So that on another page of the calendar. So instead of the scooped up look that it had with the over the top prop shaft, it will then look like its 1947 version there, which is low line. So that's GP2 as it was.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, we'll be reproducing a fuel cap like that. And that's another shot of it coming off the ferry in the Isle of Man in 1947 with the straight through scuttle top. That's what we're aiming at. All good pictures to give the body man.
Yeah. Something to work with.
Indeed. So this is a nice calendar that we had made when we got the car last December, just to mark the fact that it was heading back for A, restoration, and B, active service.
And one of them
back
is
on the racetrack.
Up in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Or my little man cave, should I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
There we have it.
So, that's Restoration GP28. Slowly coming together. So, while things are waiting to be made and what have you, there's always something else to keep us occupied up here. So this is a really nice Bentley, and of course class record for car over there, which is the Cooper T90.
Harewood.
Yeah. So that's just got the record last Sunday while I was there, and just for
International Nürburgring 1933. One of three Nürburgs made by the factory. Very original car.
Yeah. So, and there's a few other bits that are getting done, but this is really nice. That is massive. So we'll see you on the next one when there's a little bit more to show. Thanks for watching. Bye.